Welcome to the Every Night is Game Night preview series, the show where designers and publishers share their passion and answer critical questions about their Kickstarter projects. If you're on the fence about a pledge, this is the show for you.
Every Night is Game Night preview series, episode 39, Street Masters Aftershock, with Adam and Brady Sadler. Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to the Every Night is Game Night preview series. I'm your host, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a three-time returning guest for the show. We have talked about this game before. We're talking about its expansion. It is Street Masters Aftershock. Brady Sadler has been on the show 3 whole times. Welcome back to the show, Brady.
Thanks again for having me for the 3rd time, man. Appreciate it.
You are the clubhouse leader over here, along with Keith Katinka. And joining along for his 2nd time on the show, it is Adam. Adam Sadler, the co-designer of Street Masters Aftershock. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm catching up to Brady. One more with him gone, and I'll be caught up.
I'll set the next one out.
You just got to nail the next original design over there, Adam.
Yeah, I'll give that a shot.
There you go. And to help us out, we have Liz is back on the show. Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire.
Hey, happy to be here.
But we are talking about Street Masters, which is, as we drop the episode live on Kickstarter, we're taping this on October 2nd. We're going to be launching October 23rd. Is that when the date launches?
October 23rd.
It's like, oh, what's going on here? These guys are champing at the bit. If you follow them on social media, if you follow them on Facebook, Twitter, every single day there is excitement. The guys are really pumped up about this. I mean, I know you guys say this, but you guys have designed a lot of games. You say that you're more proud of this design than any other design. Is that a fair assessment?
That's pretty accurate for me, and this is Brady speaking, and it's something I'm pretty outspoken about. And I don't think me and Adam can say that we're not proud of any of our designs. I just know that this one stands out for me by far because I play it so much more than anything else we've designed.
Yeah, I would think that the fact that we've played it so much compared to our other games kind of speaks for itself. So I don't even know if it's a pride thing as much as we just enjoy the heck out of it and always want to play it. So.
All right, I'm actually going to start in a little bit of a unique place before we get into it. Like, we've talked about Street Masters. We've talked about Street Masters on the show, Every Night is Game Night episode around 96 or so. I also did a guest spot on Co-op Cast. If you want to hop over to Co-op Cast, we did an hour. God, so much time on Street Masters. So we're not going to do too much description of the basic game. I mean, it's a fighting game with card play and tactical movement, evocative of Double Dragon and all the old fighting and video games that you remember from yore. I'm actually going to start with availability because we've gotten the feedback here at Every Night is Game Night. You know, sometimes we do Kickstarters or we do previews and like, oh, when can we get the game? We can't get the game, so I know you can get the base game by backing, but was this game ever available through any other means besides Kickstarter?
We did have.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah,
you go ahead.
we
1, 2, 3, go.
we'll have to take turns who's taking first crack at each question here. So
speak in unison. I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Not harmonized, but
so the first Kickstarter funded enough to print a little bit over the number of backers we had. So there's a little bit of left over, which we took to Gen Con with us to sell, and the remainder was sold on our online store, which recently sold out. So there's basically no content left in our inventory, so the only place to get it will be the Kickstarter. And besides having an expansion for this Kickstarter, one of the other reasons for it was to do a new print run of the first wave of content for retail. We're trying to get it out there into wider distribution. So hopefully this Kickstarter Aftershock does well enough that it can print enough copies of the Wave 1 stuff, not just to fulfill backers, but also to go to retail.
Okay, so right now there's no way to get the base game. It's just, if you need it, if you want the game, back it, and then whenever it delivers, hopefully it'll get to our grubby little hands sooner rather than later.
Right. We did see some on eBay that are a little overpriced, but that's about it.
Yeah. I bet wait a little bit, but
So if you want to get your hands on it now, check out eBay or the Geek Market or something. But if you really want to, like, the entire authentic experience, the base game is available on the Kickstarter page right now, as well as Aftershock. So we are going to dedicate most of our conversation here on Aftershock and how it was designed. And I know this from talking with these guys, how Aftershock was designed with a lot of the feedback from base Street Masters in mind. We're going to get to all that. But Liz, I think when we did our original review, you'd played it a couple of times. You've gone into the table a little bit more. Tell us, like, what do you like about Street Masters?
Okay, so Street Masters basically hits a lot of buttons for me. I guess that's a video game pun. Ha, no. It's like, I mean, no, seriously though, it's like if Double Dragon and Sentinels of the Multiverse had this, like, love child, and it was a board game. And I really love the changing environments. I like the different decks for different heroes and villains. I really like the thematic and emergent story structure of the game, and I'm really looking forward to more hero stories and stuff. So that's what I'm looking to see from Aftershock, because I like those campaigns and stories where the story changes depending on whether you succeed or you fail in a certain round. You know, I want to see more of that push, because to me that was the most exciting as a solo player. I love that it's scaled for solo. You can really be a pure solo player if that's who you are, play with one character, or I actually like to play with two, because I like that sort of synergy between two different decks. But you know, I like that I can choose which one. It's just really good for somebody who likes to play solo, either pure solo or two-handed.
Okay, so if we broke down, like I said before at the beginning, we broke down a lot of, like, what we like about Street Masters. I think for me personally, just to reiterate my points, it's a two-pronged thing. One, so many combos, just so combolicious, you know, just like bam, 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 bam. You know, you punch, kick, grapple, you know, toss, move, and it feels like I'm kind of executing a combo in a video game, which is really satisfying. And also, I think you guys are the most cognate designers that I've ever heard. Like, because I've heard you guys on Man vs. Meeple and other shows of thematic integration. Like, you know, when you put something in a game, it's always like, okay, you're doing this and it represents this. Like, you know, if you play this card, it represents you tossing the guy over a chair, or kicking him putting him in a chair, tying him up, and kicking the chair across the floor. If you actually think a lot on that level. I mean, maybe you can talk a little bit about how you were able to bring that sensibility, maybe not just to Street Masters, but to your other designs as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things that helps a lot, and this might be just me, I'm not sure, because Adam and I don't discuss this part of design much, but I think it's easier to be thematic with game mechanic ideas and everything, because I never personally have a desire to be innovative or think of, like, you know, mechanics that haven't been done, or like get too weird with mixing things together. Mainly, I just like to translate these visions or cinematic moments in my head into a tabletop experience, because, you know, I just got into design because I like to play games so much that I wanted to start making them, because I have this curse where if I like something, I have to start making something like that, or otherwise I just go crazy. So it was easy for me to adapt that thematic approach to design, because that's pretty much what built all of my design chops, was just from trying to create thematic experiences.
Yeah, I'd echo that we kind of approach any design from theme first. A good example is, I know this is pretty much going to be talking about Brook City most of the time, but the follow-up game, Street Masters, the follow-up game Brook City, that we focused really hard on the theme in that one, like being able to get in and out of cars, and, you know, commandeering vehicles and driving around town doing crazy stuff. We just kind of made ways for that to work, because we wanted to get that feel of, like, Grand Theft Auto in a board game. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's definitely like that was my main selling point, along with, like, the card play. So Aftershock. So here comes Aftershock. It's funny because it's like, you know, Street Masters came, and, you know, I mean, it's I think it's gotten pretty good reviews. But, like, it's not like the, you know, this game that's like, you know, Gloomhaven that's like everywhere. And yet you guys are coming in with a giant box of stuff. I mean, like a big box expansion, multiple, like, other add-ons. What are you guys doing?
Just keep doing it. Don't listen to him.
The funny idea behind the funny concept behind how Aftershock grew is because we knew we'd have to do a reprint. After we found out the demand was there when the first wave was delivering, people were asking, "We're going to get this." I'm like, "Well, actually, we got to think about making this available, wider distribution, and everything." So we always had that plan to kickstart it, but we were like, "Well, we got to put something else in there to get returning backers to come back, you know." So let's make a cool box, like a storage box, because like I personally love big boxes to store my stuff in with organizers and dividers and stuff.
The Sentinels of the Multiverse box. I saw that picture there.
Not that massive, but yeah.
That was the first thing I thought of.
But yeah, I will buy a game I don't even play just for the box. I don't play Smash Up, but I bought a big Smash Up box just to have all those cards with the plastic dividers and stuff because I just love storage. So that was not.
I can't really.
yeah, I got
it's like the Kickstarter container store.
And then the weird thing was from there we don't want to bloat the game because there's already a ton of content out there, and we don't want to have just content overload because people who have the game still haven't played through all the stuff like beyond the base game even. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of snowballed though because we had these ideas like, oh, we could make an expansion in the box, so you're not just getting a box, you're getting new content as well. And then we talked about this cool theme. Adam and I love like this post-apocalyptic, like nuclear fallout city theme, and it just brings back that a much more visceral feel of those old beat 'em up games. It's always like, you know, mutants or nuclear wasteland type feel. And Adam, you can expand a bit on where we went content wise, like what we included in the box and everything. That's kind of how the thought process grew from.
Yeah, I mean, from a content standpoint. Blacklist being like a newer publisher, they had a lot to prove on their first Kickstarter, and they knew that they had to give that value to bring in backers to take a risk on a new company, you know. So the amount of content that was unlocked in the first the first Street Masters Kickstarter is, I mean, it could be equivalent to like a CMON, like $1 million Kickstarter. Like there's just so much stuff to play through. People tell us they love the game. I play it all the time, but I haven't even got past the base game yet, because there's just so much to try out in the game. So the content is just, there's tons of content, and that's partially because Blacklist did that choice to give that value and get as much content in the game as possible to prove to backers that they should come back and, you know, back more of their games. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what happened, you know, what happened with all that content. And as Brady said, when we're doing this Aftershock box, we're like, let's do a cool storage box, but let's also just make it an expansion. So it give a little bit, you know, give some fighters, and a new enemy faction, some new stages, a little bit of everything. So that's kind of where our thinking went with that. And of course, we have to plan out for a bunch of stretch goals, so we have lots of cool things planned if it, you know, does as well as we hope.
Mm-hmm. A couple of fighters is like $1 billion.
A couple 25, 6 fighters.
It's one of those like nerve-wracking things where you can't stop, because like we actually had a call today with Blacklist. We were planning out some of the stretch goal stuff and we're like mapping out, you know, how high should we go? You know, you don't want to like start predicting certain numbers until you see how things go, but you also have to be prepared. So we're like planning out content. And it's exciting. Just keep adding more stuff, but you're like once in a while you got to stop. Like, God, this is going out of control, man. There's too much stuff here. Like, so I'm excited to design it, but wow.
Do y'all ever get like overly committed to your stretch goals? Like there's a stretch goal that's a ways off, but you really, really want to make it happen, and it eventually just takes on a life of its own.
Yeah, I feel like if you get... I don't want to spoil it, but like we decided to do like one of our higher end stretch goals with like the Blacklist kind of let me loose, and
which was a mistake.
Which was a mistake. I love it. So if we get high enough in the numbers, you'll know it when you see it. I think you'll know if you.
You'll
know
say, "Oh, this was totally Brady's idea."
This is the Brady expansion.
It's an enemy called Brady's idea. Okay, so this has been a love fest so far, but the game has encountered its criticisms and its difficulties. I figured, and you know, because I'm in your the playtest group, I haven't actually done any playtesting because I'm like I have too much going on. I have a baby coming, for crying out loud. I'm like, I'm so dumb. What am I doing to myself? But it's giving me a window into kind of the process of making it, and you guys are a really cool kind of community there, testing, you know, and balancing and tweaking and all that kind of stuff. So I think that answers one particular criticism that I heard. I think me and Liz were talking. Glenn Flaherty from Board Games and Bourbon.
Yeah,
has this. He pointed out that like there's so much stuff it's kind of, there's a lot of scenarios and there's a lot of stuff going on, but the rules are light. So what happens is it creates a lot of kind of points of interaction, like, certain combinations of fighters and environments and villains just are very unclear with the rules and how they work. And it's like, okay, am I doing this right and everything? So that can be kind of a frustrating experience on the table, especially when you're just kind of like, I'm just going to take out what's there. And it kind of created a little bit of, like brain shock or something like that. So is that something that you guys encountered, and is there any way to kind of address that?
It's a slippery slope because we stay on top of feedback. Like we're going to have some errated cards for Aftershock, which will be included. There was nothing like really game breaking. It was more just some language inconsistencies we wanted to clean up and kind of just improve some of the decks to stay in line with the new content. And a lot of the trouble comes from, and it's nothing that's it's nothing game breaking usually, but it's just hesitations because a lot of the design is left into the cards. So there's a rule set that's provided in the rules, obviously, but the cards themselves change everything, and all those interactions can be jolting. Obviously, if you haven't played them before, I found that a lot of these problems stem from just not reading the cards ahead of time, and that's not something people want to hear. Like, they don't want to read through a deck of cards before they start playing a game. But I think it is just a learning curve a lot of the times, because I'd say because I'm really, really self-conscious about any problems that might come up, so I try to stay on top of them. But I found almost like 70 to 80% of rules confusions were just based on assumptions. Like, people assume something based on the theme or the art, but not necessarily just the pure card text. So that's something it's a struggle, because I get where they're coming from, because you want to keep the game flowing. You don't want to read every single card, like if it's got a lot of different effects. But it's also kind of the nature of the beast with this modular system we made. And going forward, we're going to keep improving that, obviously. But yeah, some of that Wave 1 content does suffer from the overload. If you don't know when you go into it, you don't know right away how all these things work together, then it is kind of a slower learning experience during the game, and it brings down the gameplay quite a bit if you're just jumping in without any preparation for reading the decks or anything.
I think it's also kind of a double-edged sword with the whole thematic thing, where we design for theme, but then when you're, like Brady said, if you're like assuming certain things because of the theme, you're assuming of a card, you might just assume something wrong. Like, a good example is we have a fighter named Jackal in Street Masters. He's like has these mind control abilities, and a lot of people ask these questions like, well, if an enemy's mind control, does it do this, does it do that? It's like, no, it doesn't do anything special besides what the card says. So it's like, yeah, yes, there's mind control,
walk
but
like a zombie, can I jump up and down?
It doesn't mean you control that minion for the whole game. It just means you can influence that minion to do certain things as the card says. So like, there is that thing where there's a barrier of assumption you have to get past and just read the card literally sometimes. So that can cause confusion.
It makes me feel kind of pompous, and I don't want to come across that way. But when I get a rules question, like I said, like 80% of the time, I just have to ask, did you read the card?
did you unplug the computer and plug it back in? So for me as a player, I will say that for me, I like that all the mechanics in the game really are related to the theme. So if you're not overthinking it, for me, I just go with it. I'm like, okay, so this is what the card says, this is what I see. I know what the theme is. Let's just rock it and see how it goes. And it always turns out totally fine. Like, I'm willing to just kind of hop in and like get a little messy with it, and then everything always turns out fine. And by the end of it, I totally understand what's going on.
Right.
So, to be fair, there was some errata that you guys, especially for the expansion content missions, like I think there was one mission that no matter what the player count, there was always spawning the same amount of enemies. So like at one player it was impossible or something. And I think that like little things like that will, like, unfortunately the positives will kind of like, you need 10 positives will get counted by one bad experience. So maybe a little bit of something happening there.
Yeah, and that's something I had conversations with too. I think when you mentioned the stage, like I was talking to, for example, Mike from Co-opcast, and that might be something that we errata. It's something we're kind of exploring. But initially, like I told him the reason we designed it that way, and after I explained it a bit, he's like, okay, I get it. So it is kind of rough not being there and able to kind of give a counterpoint, because the modular nature of the game will always have these situations. It can create a situation where it's either unwinnable or it's just very daunting, and that's just kind of, like, it's kind of the nature of the beast. And I don't ever want to excuse use that. I always want to try to, make sure we can do everything we can to improve future content. And even if we have to errata a few cards, I'm all for it. I want to make sure that the life of the game is all, all positive. It's not just like, oh, this stuff, the older stuff isn't as good as the newer stuff. I want to make sure that all of it stays consistent. And that's something we'll do going forward. We'll revisit things if we have to, but it's one of the refreshing things is when I went back to do possible erratas, I was afraid I was gonna have to errata like half the box of stuff, but it's honestly only been a handful of cards, and it's mostly just to make things clearer and make sure the intent was in the actual card text and not just something that referenced something in the rules, because that's always a problem too. Is this, like Adam mentioned before, the thematic assumptions can lead to a lot of speculations like, oh, this is missing in the rule book. Well, no, you just kind of made that rule up on the fly there because it made sense, which is cool, but that's not the intent.
Okay. All right. So another issue that has come up is player scaling. So it's been reflected in multiple reviews that this game is very excellent at 2. 2 is probably the sweet spot for this, which you are two brothers designing a game, having fun amongst yourselves. Excellent, very good at 1, as Liz pointed out, because you don't get a lot of these big games that are good with 1. Gloomhaven, you need 2 characters for crying out loud, which is a shame for most scenarios anyway. So then at 3 and 4, it can struggle a little bit with issues of length, a lot of downtime because there's not a ton of interaction between the different players, and and the game could kind of like slog down a little bit because the boss has a lot of hit points and everything. So were you guys able to address that in Aftershock?
We did. There is definitely a time issue with. Again, this is totally up to players' taste, but in my mind, a 4-player game does go a little long because we scaled the game per player. Like we basically designed a solo game and we scaled it up per player. So people, especially people that are new to the game, a 4-player game can take quite a bit of time, more than I'd like. Some people like it. Like we have playtesters that love playing big, 4-player games, and they have no problem with that. But we did want to address the issue that you brought up, downtime between turns, because if people are learning decks, it can be, their turns can be long, and if you're going first, it can be a while till you get to go again.
Real quick there, Adam, too. This is another learning curve thing, too, though, because there are support fighters. We've designed even more support fighters, but there are some in the first wave, but they're mostly geared toward experienced players. Like, a lot of fighters will have effects in their cards that say choose a fighter, and we'll notice a lot of new players choose themselves because that's what they're focused on. But those things are really helpful. Like, you can get somebody to play a card out of sequence or like move out of sequence. So those are geared toward more interaction. It's kind of geared toward more experienced players. That's part of the learning curve also, which is it's a side effect of having such a robust modular system. But go ahead, Adam.
You sidetracked me now. I forgot what I was saying. The player interaction thing. So my brain starts talking, and my brain shuts off, and I'm just.
It's so hard. I'm the host of this show. It's so hard to focus when Brady's talking.
No wonder you brought me on with him. So the player interaction thing we want to address in the Aftershock expansion. We have this new game mechanic called missions, and these are things that it's an optional rule that you can play with any combination of decks, but they're little cards that give you kind of like minor objectives to do during scenarios, and you gain tokens, these mission tokens that you can spend at any time to give a fighter an extra bonus die, or give a fighter a new, like, if you spend enough of them, you can give them a whole action. Things you can do to affect other players' turns. And we've been getting feedback, tweaking those in playtesting, but we feel like those give a little bit more interaction between turns if you're, not doing anything while somebody else is doing their turn.
Yeah, and that goes into also designing, like I said, we want more support fighters, more fighters that they just provide other options during, and again, it's something it's kind of rough to quote unquote fix, because we went to Grand Con last month and we were demoing Street Masters to brand new players, and I was kind of worried about time, because we'd have people who had no idea what the game was, like brand new to the game. Most of them hadn't even played any types of card games like this. And they'd sit down, and even though, Adam and I were kind of there to help guide the stages and the enemy decks, we'd run those for them. All of those games ended under 2 hours, and they're all 4-player, and everybody had a blast walking away, like just pumped about the game. So I think it has a lot to do with just knowing the decks. It's just a experience thing. And if you're going in as a new player, we're adding a line in the rule book saying if you're learning this game, try learning 1 to 2 players first, and that should help improve your experiences.
Yeah, because it's not just learning the game; you're also learning every deck, and so every player you bring into the game has their own deck. So that's just another deck to learn. Yep. So this game is great for solo because you can play it solo, you can learn it solo, and then you can go take it to your friends and and expand your game, but it is very easy to learn solo.
So speaking of expanding games, is there any chance at larger maps in Aftershock? Because one thing I wondered about with larger player counts is that's a lot of enemies and fighters to fit into a pretty tight space. Like, have y'all done anything spatially?
We did early on. Yeah, we did early on because we thought we would have to scale like the space. But as we play tested, it never became. It felt almost more satisfying in close quarters because like now when I play solo, I feel like the map's too big. I have to go across the map to fight a guy. You're playing 4 player. It's like there's always somebody to fight. There's always somebody there to pound on. So it didn't. I mean, it's not something we wouldn't explore, but it just never became an issue to really go after because one of my favorite parts about Street Masters, and I think people have given us positive feedback on, is just the footprint. Even though there's a ton of cards spread out on the table, having that small footprint of just an 11 by 11 tile and all that action going on there, it seems to always create a nice cinematic experience. So I'm hesitant to go beyond that, but it's not something we wouldn't consider. And I will say there is something in the plans if we get high enough that's going to explore something along the lines you're talking about.
Ooh. And then the last thing before we wrap up, that something that Peter actually brought up on the co-op cast, which is, and it made sense to me too. So this game is definitely Sentinels of the Multiverse-esque. What Sentinels does is it breaks out its different heroes and villains and everything by complexity. So you'll have your complexity 1, your complexity 2. So like, okay, who's new to the table? Here, have legacy complexity 1. You've played before? Here, have absolute 0. Good luck. Good luck
at losing and not.
Hopefully you get all your machines out there and they don't get destroyed. So that did not happen in the first edition. So you open up a character, you might get a little bit lost, especially with the expansion stuff. Because like I noticed there was one expansion hero that somebody picked, and it was like a support character. I forget exactly what it was, like this kind of machine guy. Man, I have to go look at it, but he was. Max, yes. Very, buffy, so he had to kind of know other people's turns as well as his own. So it's like, Right. Do you guys, are there any plans for that in Aftershock to kind of give people a heads up so that they have a little bit more access to like harder and easier everything?
So one of my favorite things that we're adding, actually, I'm glad you brought this up, is these overview cards. So this is something that I fully admit we left out kind of intentionally in the first wave because I kind of liked the concept of exploring content and trying things out. And I get why that was kind of a it wasn't an open-minded enough approach because I wasn't thinking about new players as much. I was thinking about if I got this game, I'd want to just explore these decks and figure out how they worked. So I want to rectify that, and we were talking about the best way to do it. So these overview cards are going to be broken up into stages, fighters, and enemies. There's going to be one of these cards for every deck in the game going forward and every deck that's already existing. They'll have a complexity rating like that tells you, that kind of summarizes how the challenge, how challenging the deck is, and the experience level you need to have to play it. So that's all rolled into that number, and it's going to be a 1 through 5. Also, it's like the most basic way we could have done it. So there'll be 1 through 5 complexity ratings, and they'll have a little overview, like a kind of just a brief write up of what's in that deck. So if it's a stage, they'll tell you what the thematic objectives are in the stage, or if it's the fighter deck, it'll tell you like how that fighter fights. So those cards will help you kind of have those overviews, but also if you want to make like a random arcade matchup, you can just shuffle those up and have these decks and draw a random fighter, draw random enemy, random stage, and make a random matchup. And then finally, those are really awesome too, because when you're setting up and you have new players, you don't have to like pull them over to the box and show them all the decks, or take all the decks out and show them. You can just give them the stack of fighter cards, overview cards, and say, here, choose your fighter based on these little write-ups here, kind of summarize who these fighters are. Here's some artwork. So that's something we're pretty excited about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I mean, I guess the context of all these questions is, yes, the Street Masters, I think you guys would both admit that there are some challenges with it, especially... Okay, so I'm trying to kind of put it together in my head. So when you look at a game that's based in a video game, I think there's an expectation that there's a little bit of accessibility, family friendliness, or, I'm just going to sit down and have a good time and, with a beer or something like that and play. And that is not what you're getting here. You're getting a game that requires some investment. And like you were saying before, settle down with a solo, settle down with a 2-player, get to know some of the decks. This game invites, even as the Wham Bam Sock'em theme might say a certain thing, but this game requires a little bit of investment. But you guys are working really hard at making that investment rewarded and paid off. Is that a fair way to kind of sum up the Street Masters experience?
Yeah, we're trying to make it more friendly to new players. It is definitely not a lighthearted dice chucker, party game or whatever. It's got some deep tactical strategy to it and a lot of deck learning, but we want to make sure that new players have some guidance about what to do first and how to get into the game gradually. Another thing we added to the rule book is if this is your first game, play against this boss and this stage, because these are the most basic decks to learn. So that's kind of one of the things we want to focus on, is just getting people started. We honestly are blown away about how much positive feedback we've gotten about the game, because I always expect very hard critics for the games we work on, just because it's the internet. But I've been blown away by the positivity, and we've definitely focused on addressing any kind of criticism we've heard of things that people had a negative experience with. This game was fun except for this. We try to focus on, okay, well, let's kind of smooth that out so it's all fun.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that was very intentional. We did not want to just, because we had the option. This was presented to us, and it's we want to make a beat 'em up game. So Adam and I could have put together, just a Zombicide style dudes on a map, go roll some dice and just beat up hordes of plastic, But we intentionally wanted to create something more robust, something more rewarding, something more thinky. So that, I do think the game suffered from that initially when it first launched with a new publisher, and nobody knew exactly what to make of it because it was a video game looking type board game, but it wasn't clear.
And it wasn't competitive either. That people were just expecting a 1-versus-1 game or whatever.
Expecting arcade fighter type game. So we're both hoping that those hurdles have been cleared, because we've seen people have gotten it in their hands. It's a proven system. There's enough positive chatter about it that we're pretty confident this Aftershock's gonna have a pretty strong launch. But yeah, we definitely wanted to make a much more thinky game as opposed to just a kind of brainless, just beer and pretzels style arcade game on the tabletop.
Well, I thank you for that. There are some very pretty, vapid games out there that have taken a lot of my money. Street Masters is I obviously came into this podcast addressing some criticism, but at the end of the day, I love this game. Play it to this day. It's a fabulous 2-player game. I need Liz move to Connecticut so we can play some Street Masters.
I know, right? Hey, we'll when the next time I visit, we absolutely must schedule it. But yeah, absolutely. I do want to say though, I'm really glad that you guys are making recommendations for what to play the first time, because I didn't know what to play the first time when I opened the box, and we had some adventures. Let's just say that.
What was the first stage you played?
Oh god, I don't even remember. Now, but, I just remember looking through the stages and thinking, okay, which one do I pick? What's the smartest choice? And actually, for me, the stories were what bailed me out, because I picked the character that appealed the most to me, and I started their story arc.
Cool.
So, for me, doing that and using that as a way to start was helpful. So that was the way that I chose to approach it. But at the same time, I don't really mind having, a catastrophic defeat the first couple times I play. It's really fine. The first time I played that cryogenic.
Oh,
original. Yeah, I was gonna say we should probably put a wrapper around. It's cashed out an original copy saying don't play these until you've played everything else.
Did you errata that thing, by the way? I cannot beat that thing to save my life.
Well, there's a slight errata, but it's not to make it much easier, just more a little more clear and a little more fluid. But if you want to beat that, just all you gotta do is take the Lita ally from Twin Tiger. She'll smoke that thing. She just she gives you free interact. So all she does is goes around and she hacks the computers. As long as you keep her alive, she'll do everything for you, and you just have to fight the boss.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the complexity 5 stages. Like, we need to have a hard stage in there, and that's definitely that one.
And that's the thing too is more fighters will open up more doors like that, because the lead of her fighter version plays off of that idea where she gives you a bonus interacts in your turn, so she helps you on most of those tough stages. So if we didn't design those in the first wave, we wouldn't have that kind of design space to play with now. So it was introduced to be very, very, very challenging, but we're hoping to offset that by having good matchups that can take them down,
All right, so that was our discussion of Street Masters Aftershock. It is live on Kickstarter right now. Hopefully these guys gave you the skinny on what went into it, and what you get from this conversation is how much these guys care. I mean, they put their heart and soul into these games, into a thinking experience, and they're really excited about it. Just follow their social media and you'll see exactly how excited both of them are. Thank you guys very, very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Let's appreciate it.
Liz, thank you for chipping in. I appreciate it. You better move to Connecticut so we can play some Street Masters.
Don't tempt me. Be careful what you wish for, Jason.
So if you guys are interested, we're going to do a little bit of an after show. If you heard our preview of Brook City, we did an after show after that one. We had a little top 10 list. We're going to do a similar thing. So if you wanted to stay tuned for that after the outro music, go for it. If not, then go ahead and hit us up, ENGN_podcast on the Twitter. Facebook group is Every Night is Game Night. We have a geek list. We have all sorts of ways that you can reach out to us. Rate us 5 stars. Yes, give us 5 stars or how many stars you think we deserve. All that good stuff in terms of outro promo. I can't wait to get to this top 10 list. I'm just rushing through this. So until next time, this is Jason signing off. Later, everybody. All right, we are back in the after show. We are here talking about video games that should be board games. So that is I kind of restricted it. I thought there was going to be tons of people on the call. So we only a couple people. So I said, okay, everybody give their top 2. I posted this to Brady, and Brady's like, oh, we've been thinking about that for a year because Blacklist always annoys us about this. Is that the deal? Are Blacklist a bunch of video game fans that they just want to make games of every single one of their favorites?
Well, they're still aware of their new publisher status, and there's certain things that really works well with getting into certain retail chains and distribution and everything. Licensed games are a great ticket to get into certain areas, so they're always like, if you were to do a licensed game, what would it be? And Adam and I both have this kind of we don't hate licensed games, but coming from big companies, we used to work at FFG. We know the hoops you have to jump through with licensed games, and it's just a tricky.
Plus, we like creating our own worlds and stuff too. So
so it's kind of just it's a struggle, but we're open to it. So we're always kind of just throwing ideas out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's hear some of those ideas, or at least the ideas that have floated to the top. I don't want to hear the bad ones. Let's hear So I've asked Liz to do this as well. So this will be top 2 video games that should be board games. I'll start with our esteemed guests. Adam, tell us your number 2 video game that should be a board game.
Okay, this one's going to be weird, mainly because there are so many board games out there that can be related to video games that kind of already exist. But this one is something I played when I was a kid, and it was engaging, and I was always interested in a newer game like this. But it's called Baseball Stars. I'm not sure if you remember this one. Anybody?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah, so Baseball Stars was a game by SNK, and it was for Nintendo. It was awesome. It was based off an arcade game, but it's a game where you can play baseball matches, but you can actually make a team, make all the players in the team, they have all stats and stuff, and you can play through a league. And so every game, you know, your players got better, and you could sell players and buy players or trade players. And it was just
every few games you would have a star player you could draft, and it was so exciting because they had a different graphic. It was like some guy blowing a ball gum or something.
Some guy with sunglasses, I'm getting that
guy. Awesome game.
So I don't know how it'd be done because I'd love to do a baseball game someday, but it's just hard to do a baseball game on the tabletop. But I think that would be really cool to have some kind of persistent you're building a team and managing a team throughout a season. Be cool.
So would Baseball Highlights 2045 be in that realm, or is that doing a different thing?
I think it'd be close. I mean, I haven't played that one. I know how it plays. I just haven't played it myself. But I feel like that'd be a good way to resolve the actual games, but then have like another layer on top of that, being like being the manager and managing your team and everything afterwards.
All right, you guys have got to play Baseball Highlights 2045 like now. That's your life. Then we can come back and finish this conversation.
You know, one reason I didn't get it, like the one reason I went back, is I don't like robots. I was like, I don't want to be a robot pitcher. Everything else looked great about it, though.
Hey guys, are y'all there?
Yep.
All right, Brady, what is your number 2 video game that should be a board game?
Number 2, I'd have to go with Castlevania. Just because when I was a kid, I used to love that.
Adam's like, you stole my idea.
I gotta think of another number 1, guys. I'll be right back.
It's like my number 1, Adam. And I think it'd be hard to recreate this part in a board game. It's on the tabletop, but I love the whole, exploring an area, coming back to it with different things unlocked, and having that free form roaming and exploration aspects. And then obviously the Castlevania theme was just awesome. So I'd love to play a game like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Liz, video game that should be a board game. You're number 2.
All right, this is possibly strange, but I would really love a board game version of Final Fantasy Tactics.
Oh, yeah.
I was really obsessed with all those different job classes and ways that you could combine skills. Like when I was a kid, I swear, I would just grind like between all the places where you can go fight different enemies and just trying to create people who were masters in every single job class and then like combine all the different abilities. I'm just obsessed with it. Like, growing movement stats, interesting, differences in your odds of hitting, like based on where you're positioned next to an enemy, strengths, weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how you would make this work really well in a board game because I feel like there's probably a lot going on behind the scenes of a game like that. But
you'll probably like the game that Adam and I have on the back burner then.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
I cannot tell you the number of hours I have spent playing Final Fantasy Tactics in my life, just obsessing about like what is the best combo and like what's the best way to approach this boss and how do I get this skill and how do I combine with that skill. I just think it would be really fun.
I love that
especially
game.
with like a good like campaign story,
I feel like that the board games don't do enough generally with character creation and character growth. So like, that's what an RPG is all about, right? And that's the kind of half the game is like, that's what I used to do in D&D when I played D&D all the time. Like, the adventure is great. The DM never did what I wanted to do anyway. So I'm going to control what I want to control, which is my character, my feats, my synergies and all that kind of stuff. I yet to see a board game really take that. Like City of Kings has the
I
big
wanted
old...
it to be that so bad.
It has the big old complicated board, but it's contained. Like once you finish off, and you're gonna have to just reset and do it again, or so it kind of scratched the surface of that. I feel like there's so much more that could be done in terms of character growth and creation, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's just too big a thing to handle. But then again, we didn't even think Legacy was possible 5 years ago or whatever it is. Change a board, sticker your board. So, I don't know. My number 2 is kind of in a similar vein because, in terms of big adventure games, I'm going to go with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Oh, sorry.
Every time I think of a replacement, you guys just knock it off the list. I'm like...
in a particular way, though, like, so obviously you have the big adventures. Of course you want big adventure. And, the cute story and the cute art. What I liked about the Zelda system, and a couple other games do this too, is you have the puzzle as well. So you'll get into like a room where you'll have to move the blocks and put the, shine the light through the mirror and everything. I feel like with how escape room games have developed, you can almost do something like that where you have like a mini escape room thing. And then you're like the group has to just pause and figure it out. Like Mansion of Madness does this, but I feel like Mansion of Madness kind of just doesn't do it well enough because basically one person's doing it, the person that's smartest at puzzle solving and who has the iPad. But they can really do that with involving the entire table and making a puzzle, a tactile puzzle like that. And then you go on to do your adventure and everything. So I feel like with the way board games are developing, more of that kind of thing is possible.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you on that one.
So,
Well, luckily I play a lot. Is it back to me? back down?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay.
Number
So
one.
luckily, I play a lot of video games in my day, so I have a lot of backups here. But this one would. This is something that Brady and I've actually discussed and kind of tweaked an idea at one point. Is a game based off of Harvest Moon, and not like Agricola, because it's not like I'd rather we do cooperative games. So I would think of a nice, relaxing cooperative game of farming, like building a farm, exploring towns, going to the woods, stuff like that, and upgrading your tools and trying to expand your farm every year and just get have to do so well every year. But I've spent so much time playing Harvest Moon when I was a kid, and recreating that on tabletop would be pretty awesome.
Let's just cancel our next game and do that one. I'm tired of putting that.
All right. Aftershock is off the schedule. We'll just do Harvest Moon.
Aftershock. Yeah.
Oh, after Aftershock.
One after Aftershock.
But what would you call it so you don't have to get it licensed?
Autumnal sun.
Marvist. We'll just call it Marvist Hoon.
Marvist Hoon. Project Marvist Hoon. It was born here, folks.
Yeah, you guys wonder how designers get ideas for games. This is basically how it happens. Just BSing.
You're laughing now, but next year when we announce this game, you'll be like, oh, I remember that one.
For the 50 people who are listening right now. You heard it here first. All right, Brady, what is your number one?
So this one is slightly similar to Castlevania, but it's much better in my opinion. So my favorite game ever on the video game platform is Blaster Master for Nintendo. And it had the same idea where you're exploring these levels, going back to like old levels. So it actually had, if you were like on level 1, you go to level 2, then you go back to level 1 to get to level 3, like this, all kinds of weird exploration. But the best part was you're this tank driving around as a side scroller, and you can hop out by pressing select, and you're on your little dude on foot, and you go into dungeons, and it's an overhead view dungeon like Zelda, and it's a lot of moving parts, but I would love to see that done on a tabletop somehow elegantly. I don't know how, but that'd be my dream adaptation.
Why do I not know Master Blaster? It's tickling at the back of my brain, but I'm just not seeing it.
It was kind of a sleeper hit when it came out, but it's kind of a cult classic now. But Sunsoft released it, and they actually, I don't know if you have any of the new systems, but on Switch they have a Blaster Master Zero on the Nintendo eShop, and it is phenomenal. It's the best Blaster Master game ever. It took the original recipe and just kicked it up a few notches and brought it to a modern gameplay standard. It's amazing. I love it. I still play it today.
So you're telling me I have to get a Switch now?
You have to get a Switch, and you have to get Blaster Master Zero. I'm telling you right now.
Okay. I have been tempted for a long time. There is not a lot on PlayStation I want to play.
Yeah, I bought it just for that game. And the day, I didn't want to Switch, and the day before the Switch came out, I heard this game was coming out on eShop. It's like a $10 game. I went and bought the Switch just for this one game.
Dude, you should get a Switch just for Golf Story. Golf Story is amazing.
Golf Story is so good.
It is.
I love it.
I really like
Golf Story? Is that another video game?
It is a golfing RPG.
Yes, and the golf is actually very fun in it. It's just the simple fact of playing golf in that game is fun, but there's also an RPG to it. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's like the most interesting version of golf I've ever witnessed. Not gonna lie.
By the way, okay, I'm changing that. I want to do a board game on Golf Story.
You have like 7 things. What's going on?
2063.
Robo Golf.
Liz, what's your number one?
Ooh, okay. So I was gonna be a smart aleck and tell y'all that now you've done Grand Theft Auto, so you have to do Grand Theft Horse and do a Red Dead Redemption kind of thing.
Oh,
I'm going to. It's on the schedule.
Thank you. But okay, so what I really want in my board gaming life, I just don't know if this is possible, is I just love stealth games. I love Dishonored or Thief, where you're really sneaking. And I just got a review copy of V Commandos. I'm really curious about how stealth's going to work in that game, but I have a feeling that it's not quite going to be.
No, it's good. It's good.
Did you ever play Desperados for PC?
No, I did not. So I've never owned a gaming PC. I've only done consoles.
It was back in the, I think, late 90s, early 2000s. It was kind of like one of those stealth isometric stealth games, but it was Wild West. It was pretty awesome.
Based on Commandos, which is ironically that's what V Commandos is based on, was the old Commandos games, which were my favorite games as a teenager. But yeah, V Commandos is a great game. If it had miniatures,
I'm excited. And they just picked up the Assassin's Creed license, which of course fits them perfectly into this.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I want really good stealth because, okay, so many video games and board games, right, are based on sort of outright violence and, like, punching and all that. I'm just, even in, like, let's say I'm playing Far Cry, right, I get a sniper rifle, and I just, like, plant myself somewhere and slowly pick them off. Like, I have these really passive-aggressive, like, fighting strategies. and I like it like that, and, in Skyrim, I like getting, my Khajiit assassins, like, 100 stealth. And then, you go in and, like, you shoot someone. It's like, oh, it must have been the wind. Being stealthy and doing a lot of sort of distance hits and stuff. I would love a board game that really scratches that itch for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think V Commandos would do it because it's very family. It's like the whole point of why it's good. It's like it's good for families and it's good for like entry level stuff. So like the stealth relies on a dice roll. So if you miss the dice roll, well, too bad. You just set off the alarm.
There isn't much depth to it, but I just love how simple it was for like because you can easily make a game like that overly complex. And I do agree. I wish there were more mitigations to have, like, at least maybe character abilities that could help mitigate stealth somehow. Like the scout should have had a reroll or something at least, maybe one less die. But I'm waiting for Metal Gear Solid and somebody to do that in the board game also.
Oh yeah,
I love stealth.
All right, so I'm not gonna pull the Adam. I'm not gonna pull just changing up all my games. My game because this is he's a top game for me of all time. Like I'd probably top 3 or 4. Metal Gear Solid is one of mine, and Deus Ex is actually up there too for me. Like and Splinter Cell and like you were saying, Dishonored. Like I love games where the achievement is do the whole game without killing anybody. Yeah. I'm just get them in their carotid artery and drag their bodies into the plant or and it's so puzzly, and that's what solo players love, right? And I'm a big Care Bear too. I don't want to shoot people.
Yeah. Now that I'm an adult, try to stab somebody. I used to love like stabbing people in games. Now if I stab, I'm like, oh god, that's gotta hurt. Sorry, buddy.
We'll just grapple with them instead.
Yeah.
Exactly. But a Metal Gear, a true like. And I guess it would be the same issue as Street Masters had, where it's like, okay, it have to be kind of a leg up in terms of the complexity. Because I guess as I'm getting through these board games, like I'm getting a little bit like, oh, this is an entry level game, even though this is a huge giant game. Like Massive Darkness had this issue, like, okay, this is a huge giant game, but it's really quote unquote easy to get into. Well, what does that mean? It means there's not much there, and I want to sell it in 5 days.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Something with like real strategic depth, and I don't know. It sounds like that Blacklist may have asked you for Metal Gear Solid, and it may have been you guys are being studiously solid. I have no idea, but that is the game.
Right now, one of my dream games is like Stealth Commando stuff. Like that's like something that's going to be you'll see something that Adam and I do that's like Stealth Commando stuff because that's one of my favorite like genres. I don't know what I'm not much of like a military guy or like a war guy, but I just love like commando stuff. So, and Metal Gear Solid is a fantastic game. So I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, so we gave you way more than 2. But this is how they do it, and as long as Adam and Brady work for Blacklist, you're going to get a lot more board games based on video games. Thank you guys very much. This was a ton of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Liz,
it was awesome
thank you so much.
Yeah,
you too, Liz.
Yeah, great talking to you, Liz.